Researchers at the University of California, Berkeley looked into the working poor and specifically fast food workers in a new study. And they found that, quote, from 2007 to 2011, the biggest public benefits programs spent $243 billion each year on working families who live in poverty or are on the brink of it because their jobs pay so poorly. So take a second and fully grasp what they're saying. They're saying that $250 billion was spent just from 2007 to 2011 for the government through programs to help out the working poor. The working poor. So they're working full-time jobs in many cases, but they need government assistance. Now, how could that be? If you're working a full-time job, shouldn't you be able to at least live, a basic lifestyle without having to run to the government to get some help? Well, what they did in this study is they looked at food stamps, welfare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program, among some others. And what they found is that the fast food workers included in the study were nearly 5 times less likely to receive health insurance through their work than is typical across the entire economy. So for fast food workers, it was 13% of them that got health care through their job, as opposed to 59% in the rest of the economy. So they are tremendously undervalued, and essentially their employers throw them under the bus. And it's because these are typically large, sometimes multinational corporations that are divorced from the actual workers, the people who are actually making them money, so they feel no obligation to them and they don't offer them health insurance. So what I want to focus on is the implication of these findings, because that's what really hit me like a ton of bricks. The bottom line is that, if anybody, the Republicans should be on the front line of fighting for a minimum wage hike. Now, why do I say that, and why am I so certain of myself when I say that? Because what's happening here? What's happening is that the people who have to foot the bill because the employers are paying nothing is the taxpayers, which is big government. So because of these private businesses paying a wage that's essentially like indentured servitude, me and you and everybody needs to foot the bill with our tax dollars funding these programs that make sure that these poor people don't die, right? So it should be the Republicans on the front line of arguing for a higher minimum wage. Because if we had a living wage as the minimum wage, then the taxpayers wouldn't have to foot the bill and we could have smaller government. I mean, it's amazing when you really dive into it, because it makes sense when you explain it, but at face value, you would think, well, of course they're Republicans. They're Republicans. They're in favor of, the business owners, and they don't want the employees to get a higher wage. But if they were actually in favor of small government, they would want the working poor to get higher wages. And just the whole notion of a working poor existing is insane. How can you work a full-time job, but society doesn't value enough to make sure you have health care and to make sure you can feed your kids and pay the rent? You have to worry about being homeless while you are working a full-time job. I mean, talk about insane priorities. There will come a time in history, and some countries have already graduated to this point, but there will come a time in history in the United States where we look back on that scenario and we say, how Neanderthalic and barbaric and pathetic and dumb can we possibly be? Now, just to give you a couple more specifics here, according to a recent Gallup poll, support for raising the federal minimum wage, in this poll they asked to $9 an hour. But even if you raise it up to $10 or $12 an hour, the poll results are similar, because I've seen other polls that have even higher numbers than this. But just according to the Gallup poll, 71% of the American people say, yes, of course, you raise the minimum wage. That's a no-brainer. Now, when you break it down by party, 91% of Democrats say, yes, raise the minimum wage. And independents, 68%, so still a tremendous majority. And for Republicans, only 50% support raising the minimum wage. Well, if you actually believed in smaller government, 100% of you would want to raise the minimum wage.